All right, everyone. Welcome for those that have just joined us. We're just going to leave about 10 to 20 seconds here so all of you can join us, get through Goldcast, get through the technology and join us live. So we're just seeing a few people join. Let's just start to wait for those to trickle in and then we'll kick off. For those that are just joining us now, very much welcome to the topic that we're going to cover off today for the next 30 minutes. Our focus today is really on probably the hottest topic in the market at the moment, the economics of tokenomics, and quite aptly is the prompt pay repeat. So we're going to go and explore that together today and then understand the market conditions around that. And also as well, what is Flexera doing in this space to help address some of those needs? I'm glad to be joined today by Matt Williams, one of my peers, who is going to explore this. He's one of our experts, a very, person who loves to read up and understand and communicate these ideas back to the audience. So thank you, Matt, for joining us.
Pleasure.
So for those that have maybe just joined this particular webinar for the first time, we do have a whole range of topics that we've covered in this on-demand series. Please feel free to jump on the YouTube playlist here, understand what we've had on offer, review some of the content, reach out to us and discuss. It's been a fantastic set of sessions that we've run in the past here, everything from cloud, from IBM to data cloud with Databricks, and all the way down into SaaS and mastering SaaS as well. So if there's anything you want, we'll paste the link in the chat for you as well to get access to those previous sessions. Now, today, just looking ahead to the next few webinars that we're planning to run over the next few months here. Today, obviously, we're focusing in on prompt pay repeat, exploring AI and the tokenomics of consumption. Next month, we're going to dive into take control of your Snowflake spend. So really look at how the Snowflake costs are spiraling out of control. What are some of the things and concepts to understand that are maybe different from a Databricks or public cloud? And something to take home and really understand around how you can truly optimize that space. In October, we're targeting a slightly different topic, still in that cloud space, and looking at how we use workload optimization, how we're continuously optimizing, whether that's in your container space, whether it's in your on-demand spot instances, and really work through some of those use cases where we want to get away from people making those decisions. We want to get AI and ML embedded into how we autonomously automate or autonomously workload manage a number of those areas of your business today. So we'll cover that topic in October. Now, today, really what we want to focus on is AI and AI spend. This would be no surprise to anyone on this call today, but AI costs, AI infrastructure services, software, are all growing year on year. When I put the previous slides up in the previous sessions, we spoke about a $644 billion industry. Gartner, in particular, now are predicting a $2.59 trillion industry that's evolved out of this space, and it's grown so rapidly in the last 6 to 12 months that it's very difficult even to plan for this session. Matt, what do you think about this?
It's incredible. We're halfway through the year now, but actually this figure's been trending upwards throughout 2026. In January, Gartner's prediction was 44%. They revised this in May, took it up to 47%. And at that, we're just shy of 2.6 trillion is what they're going to say we'll have spent by the end of the year. That figure makes up 1/3 of all IT spend.
Yeah. It's huge. It's and something that's going to keep growing unless there's some governance and guardrails put in place. So in saying that, this is where we start to look, and I always like to frame what we're talking about into how that relates to the overall Flexera One platform, and understand that AI cost management is now front and center of that. But it's not just an AI cost management conversation. That's really focused in on the consumption piece, the AI cost, the spend and risk associated with that touches on every part of the platform. Now, whether that's from a per user, per seat based licensing, whether it's what we're consuming in the cloud and AI infrastructure, we're going to explore that a little bit today. But this is a capability that spans multiple different elements and facets and different personas and stakeholders within your businesses as well. And we're going to show you how we touch into each of these areas. Now, Matt, you want to take us through what the market is telling us at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, I find these headlines incredible, partially because of the figures that we're seeing here, but also because of the brands, some of the organizations that have made these statements. You look at a company that has spent $500 million on Claude in one single month because no one set any usage limits. Uber have burned their entire 2026 budget by April, so they're not even halfway through the year. They've had to revise their budgets. But the big one for me as well is Microsoft. It's a brand we know, it's a title we know, it's business critical software for most organizations out there. They cancelled most of their Claude code licenses because the token bill spiraled. When you think of a Goliath like that and the industry having to make changes, I find that quite incredible. I think this proves that more than any other category in technology, AI has the most infinite consumption ability. The most important bit now is going to be measuring it, predicting it, forecasting it. This is going to become far more important than any other area of technology spend, just because it has the propensity to spin out of control.
Yeah, exactly right. And so we're going to query, the crowd here today that is on this call, and by show of virtual hands, emotes, give us a thumbs up or a heart here, and I can see some of you trying to practice that now as well. But I'm just going to go throw out a few statements. I just want you to react to those as we go through. And Matt, appreciate your commentary on each of these as we go through. So number one, are you getting the vibe that C-suite is underwhelmed from AI investments?
Nath, I think this is absolutely accurate in terms of the statement. There's independent analysis which shows there's a growing efficiency gap. Only 6% of organizations are reporting measurable and material impacts so far. They're not seeing it.
Yeah, exactly. Number two, so we turn on an AI feature and only realize the cost later.
Yeah, let's refer back to that previous slide. One organization spending $500 million in 1 month, Uber spending their entire year's budget in 4 months. Absolutely shows that people don't understand how much they are going to spend when they enable this.
Number three, finance saw an AI-related spike and couldn't trace it back to usage.
Yeah, we're going to refer to this later on in another slide, but yes, stakeholders are not speaking the same language, and they're unable to communicate effectively across departments.
Number four, we don't know which team is driving most AI consumption.
Yep, as with the previous comment, multiple functions are using AI, but they all lack that visibility to monitor the spend.
All right, great to see some of those emotes and reactions coming through. Number five, AI charges are buried in a broader SaaS or cloud bill.
Absolutely. So AI is being integrated into the existing applications and the licensing agreements that we already have, that are already in place. Think about Copilot being wrapped into M365 as an example. I think that demonstrates how these things are sneaking into our cloud bills and spiraling our costs. What's the last one we've got there, Nath?
Number six, we're still treating AI pricing like licenses.
Yeah, it's not being broken out into its component parts. It's being wrapped up into existing agreements, as we just said. And it's easy to assume that licensing metric is the same when actually changes are kind of being snuck into our agreements.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, good participation there. Thanks to those that are giving us the thumbs up and love hearts there. Fantastic. So Matt, I'm going to hand over to you to talk about what's new, what's changed.
Yeah, so we've been here before. I mean, like the title says, cloud broke the contract. Finance saw the bill, engineering owned the workload. Neither side were talking to the other half. Out of this spun FinOps, we were looking at collaboration across teams, business value driving tech decisions, teams taking accountability of their cloud consumption. What we're now looking at, though, is it's an explosion of that again. you're looking at 6 functions that are really impacted by AI, not just in their own use of AI, because it is starting to permeate into every single aspect of industry, every single aspect of our organization. You're talking about finance, engineering, security, legal, as well as business and vendor management, all using AI. But they all have a say to it. They all have a responsibility to help manage that spend and understand what they're using. The audience has grown enormously. What's then spun out of that again is the Tokenomics Foundation. So it's an extension of the FinOps Foundation, launched in June 2026 by the Linux Foundation. We are part of that. Flexera is a founding member, alongside some of the bigger names, Microsoft, Google Cloud, Salesforce, ServiceNow, an example. But the bit we're looking for here, and what we're starting to see, is that vocabulary coming first, us all beginning to talk the same language. And we talk a little bit more about how the licensing metrics have changed in that next slide, Nath.
Yeah, exactly. So we look at standardization, but the metrics keep changing.
Absolutely. So think about what we've got here. Meter 1, that first column you see there is what we're used to. It's what the contract has been negotiated on, the seat license. The thing is, there's 3 other columns there now. So meters 2, 3, and 4, they're absorbing your IT budget. They're repricing your AI consumption, okay? And they don't reset on the cycle your contract was built about. So you've got to see a lot of moving parts to try and manage and understand. This is a rapid evolution in licensing usage. Most importantly, it's an enormous evolution in cost to your business as well. If you look at column 2, this is hidden in your contract. It's the addition of something like Copilot to your M365. It is Firefly and generative credits to your Adobe Creative Cloud, but they're measured differently, okay? Look at that column 3, we're starting to move into the inference era of consumption. Vendors are resetting their credit cycles independent of that initial contract term that you see back in column 1. And then, the 4th column as well, that per token bit, which is the one which we're going to talk about a little bit more in the next slide. But, that's really relates to those frontier AI platforms that we're all using, okay? It may not even relate to a signed contract. You might not have a signed contract, okay? But they'll be billed purely on consumption. Think about the reference we made earlier on to that $500 million bill that organization experienced. Would now be a great time actually to get a quick show of hands, see how many of you have a single dashboard in any tool anywhere that would reconcile all 4 of these meters. Can you count this, I guess, is my question.
Yeah, I suppose a lot of skunk works, as they say as well, trying to pull all of this together. It's changing at such a rapid rate, but it's good to see some of that feedback coming in though. All right, so just touching on something Matt just said there as well, in terms of the inference and token consumption that we've really moved into. I love this stat: 99.7% the cost per AI token has fallen since the GPT-3 era models. And why change? If it's gotten that much cheaper, why is it the cost just absolutely exploding? Well, it comes down to a simple thing: is the same prompt that you put in to GPT, Claude, Gemini, you name it, is the user prompt in the frontier models now cost up to 2,000 tokens compared to the earlier models, which was half of that. This is just a standard prompt. If I look at things like a conversational history, and bringing in all of the details that were previously, that system learnt about you, adding the context into that, we're anywhere up to 250,000 tokens per prompt for the frontier models. So these are latest and greatest models. That gets even worse when we start to look at different languages. So non-Latin script-based languages, Chinese, Japanese, Korean. Now, I'm obviously very passionate about that in the APAC region, where it's 2 to 3 times the amount of token consumption for non-Latin based script. So, we start to add up over time, and on the right-hand side, there's a fantastic visualization of that, where, the baseline, if I take 1 as the legacy, in GPT, 4 mini, as an example here, the balanced models that are being used generate 10 to 30 times the amount of tokens. The newest frontier models, the GPT-5s in particular, 50 to 500 times the amount of tokens that a model would use previously under a legacy model. And that becomes more and more relevant. So I love this particular graph that from Cursor, their Cursor Bench. Please feel free to go online, check out Cursor Bench. They're up to the evaluations up to 3.2 now. But this places that cost versus latency versus reliability on here and talks about the model optimization. Now, if I'm running a particular user prompt, I'm asking about the weather, I'm asking about how to summarize a particular PowerPoint. Do I need the latest and greatest Fable 5 model? It's going to cost me $18 per query at a relatively decent reliability score. Could I look at using something like a GPT-5 or a Gemini that may cost me $2 or $3, per run, per task in this particular case, to get the same outcome? Maybe not as reliable, but the re-queries, re-prompting may take 1 or 2 tries to get to the outcome that you're looking for, but it could still be cheaper than the latest and greatest models. So starting to get into the era again of model optimization being just as critical as putting the guardrails on what tokens are being consumed. And Matt, like when we start to look at what the market is saying, what the press is saying, this is not just a tech and IT problem anymore, is it? It's out there in the wild.
It really is, and we all consume AI. Okay, in our work lives, in our private lives, it's crept in. These headlines, though, I think really show how much it's kind of permeating life on the basis that all of these headlines have come from national news outlets. We're not talking about just the tech press here. We're talking about all the big names in terms of the news organizations. Everybody's reporting something on AI. JP Morgan is an example. They've made a very interesting statement. They've already confirmed that AI has reduced headcount by 30 to 40% in some areas of industry. But what is interesting, though, is that they're also stating that sharp cost reductions are an illusion, because actually everybody needs to use AI. And when that happens, when everyone starts using AI, it doesn't mean the fastest adoption wins. It just stays even. It just levels the playing field. Only 45% of organizations are reporting substantial business returns. Only 2% of organizations involve the CFO in validating AI value, as an example. Boston Consulting Group have made a really strong comment there, saying that it will reshape more jobs than it replaces, which is really interesting. The other thing that we were talking about when we started to brief on this, we started to plan this session about six weeks ago, is we were talking about token maxing and how token maxing as a practice for measuring return against AI investment probably wasn't particularly accurate. So they were looking at how much it would cost, let's say, for an engineer to employ an engineer, and then at that point, people would assume that we're going to give them half a salary again in terms of AI tokens, and if they are using all of those AI tokens, that would mean that we're getting really good value for money out of that individual. But what's nuts is that's changed in 4 weeks. So token maxing has suddenly been pushed to one side, and we're looking at value maxing. People are starting to think already about outcome-based measurement, explicit delegation, clearly defining what the AI owns, what the human owns as well. And they're looking for things like tracking cycle times, rework burden, all of these catchphrases that tie in with the measurement and the value taken from the use of AI. What really does interest me, though, is so this was at the weekend. I'm on a forum, and this comment picked up from a product manager just saying, look, does anyone else feel like AI isn't actually changing the work that much? And what they were saying is they're doing a lot of work in terms of validating or marking their own homework, or even marking AI's homework to make sure it's correct. They're doing things like checking and verifying code. And we think about how in the future, we may build code, we may be building programs using AI. We're going to need to make sure that we understand what we're introducing to our organization in terms of things like risks. We really need to know what it is that we're going to do there, how we're going to measure that.
Yep. Exactly. And I suppose this perfect segue, not like we planned this at all, but we start to look at the road ahead now. So what is that better way? And I think when we start to look at these, and we like to refer to these areas as the technology buyers versus the technology builders. So if I'm a consumer in corporate, I look at from a technology buyer perspective. What are the apps and agents that I'm using and consuming, whether that's the Copilots of the world, the Claudes, or my Firefly in Adobe, or Einstein in Salesforce, Canva AI, and the agents. Am I using Copilot Studio, Agentforce, or the ServiceNow AI agent? So as a consumer, I'm using a whole bunch of these things. On the right-hand side is when I'm, the builders, the developers, the Matt and I's of this world. Sometimes we go through and we using the different models, the Claudes, the Geminis, everything that we just saw in the model optimization capabilities. We start to look at AI data clouds. We start to look at what are the AI components embedded into the likes of Databricks and Snowflake and BigQuery. When I look at compute, so everyone's heard NVIDIA and the massive stock price increase over the last few years where the GPUs are in high demand. What am I using within my containers in the Kubernetes space? And finally, if I look at the distinct AI platforms being a separate sort of bucket, and I start to look at what's being used in the public cloud, AWS, Azure, so my Bedrocks and Foundries, all of these contribute cost or different metrics at different points in their life cycle. And when I look at those different metrics, it's, AI apps is a per, seat per user and credits. When I start to look at agents, it might be tokens. If I start to look at models, it's that model optimization and reframing what's good enough, the balance of cost versus performance. In AI data models is, should I optimize my queries? Do I have long-running queries or queries that are retrying when they're accessing the data warehouse and bringing information back? So how can I optimize performance around that? My AI compute focuses in on whether that's GPU optimization, whether it's cloud rates at scale. And then when I start to look at my AI platforms, I then start to look once again at model optimization. Am I using the right models that fit the purpose? Or what I need to look at my rates and workload. Do I need to look at my commitments that I have in that space because I've got planned and committed spend in AI? Now, the way that Flexera tackles that is through whether that's in SaaS management, data cloud optimization, cloud cost optimization, and a range of different capabilities that we highlighted earlier. But really, I'm looking at the new capability in AI cost management there. So this is purposefully addressing the consumption and credit-based usage of AI within our platform. Now, the goal for us is really that it's not just a consumption-based problem. Matt and I, we were speaking about this at length in terms of one prompt, one query. Create me a board presentation utilizing data that's from Salesforce and other contexts from other areas about customer support trends and financials. A simple query like this could go off and target 5 different areas of your business. Whether it's Microsoft Copilot, that per seat license that I'm consuming in stage 1. I'm touching my Azure AI Foundry in the back end on my public cloud. I might be using and leveraging models, whether that's on-premise or whether it's in the cloud, but do I tap into a GPT-style model and consume tokens and credits from that perspective? Where then I maybe use a back-end database to get the context from another data source about my financials, or maybe tapping into a Databricks. So how do I look at the cost that's been hit querying the data warehouse? Is that query efficient and being optimized? And finally, on my AI compute side, if I'm leveraging models that exist on premise or in the cloud, what are the GPU consumptions? What's the consumption on compute in the cloud? So I need to ensure that I tackle the AI as a total cost of AI, not just the tokens that are being consumed in that sort of middle tower there in number 3. So the way that we look at this, I'm going to jump in a little bit and cover each of those areas and what that looks like within the platform today. But where I look at SaaS management in particular, so with the AI apps, we categorize through AI generative AI, and you can go in through and search who's using what within their web browsers. Get a nice clean list of who's been using it, where they're from. If I look at my data cloud optimization, this is where we start to look at the nodes, the warehouses, the queries, and categorizing AI as part of those workloads within Databricks and Snowflake. Now, where can I save and reduce my spend in those areas? When I then start to tackle the compute side, now we just picked one around container cost visibility here, but what are the drivers of increasing cost in, say, Kubernetes, and surfacing that cost as well to understand where reductions can be made there through, whether it's workload optimization, whether it's recommendations from a cloud cost perspective. When then I tackle the AI platform side. So what are the services that I'm consuming in AWS and Azure, even GCP, the Bedrocks, the cognitive services in Foundry, and Vertex in Google there. But I want to understand, are those steady? What's the anomalies that have been detected? What are the spikes in that space? And then finally, this is the piece of the puzzle that is available now to look at. We've got a little QR code there for our Lighthouse program around for those customers that are interested in signing up and contributing to this capability. But this is where the missing piece of the puzzle was around the consumption and credits. So for providers like Anthropic, the OpenAI AIs of the world, the Cursors, even into the Microsoft Copilots and Copilot Studio and Work, getting an understanding about who's consuming that, what they're actually consuming, and how many tokens and credits. And this is where we start to look forward around different capabilities that we can use and leverage the power of the platform, really understand the total cost of AI spend. So Matt, on that, quick summary of the capabilities in that space. We're just going to tackle a few of the questions that have come through here. So Matt, how will AI cost management be licensed? When's it available?
Great question. So we'll have more details about that throughout September. It should be available by end of Q3. So for us, it's end of September. It will be launched. But you can get a demo of it now. You should be able to get a demo of it now. So contact either Nathan, myself, or your local Flexera agent, and we'll get that set up for you.
Yeah, awesome. Another question, maybe I've interpreted a few of the questions that have come through, but do you think the AI bubble is going to burst? Is this a fad? Is this a trend? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, this is really interesting. I think probably 3 or 4 months ago, I had a different opinion to the one I have now. And in another 3 months, I'll have a different opinion again. And I think that ties in with how fast AI is moving, how our adoption of it is evolving as well. I don't think it's going to burst. I think it's going to become the norm. I think it is it's a revolutionary industrial change. Over the last couple of 100 years, there have been several of them. I really think this is one of them. So no, I don't think it's going to burst. But I do think that the thing we've talked about here is we're going to have to learn how to control things like spend, like consumption, but understand where it fits, where it can be trusted, and where we can use it effectively as well. What do you think, Dave?
I do. I tend to agree. I think it's going to become part of what we're doing day in, day out. I think it was the Boston Consulting Group stated that we're going to reshape the way people work rather than replace jobs. And I think we're going through this peak of people reducing workforce and size, and AI is to blame. But I think as we get beyond that phase, it'd be those that have learned and absorbed AI thinking and ways of working. That'll be foundational to move forward, and then become part of what we do day in, day out. Just like we use cloud today or SaaS-based applications, AI will just be the bread and butter of what we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis to improve how we get outcomes and drive efficiencies in the way that we work. So, look, I think maybe one time, last comment, Matt, how do you see AI changing FinOps over the next few years?
Yeah, I think that's going to be huge. I think it's going to redefine what FinOps is. I think that it will I mean, they're all going to become part of one of that kind of same bubble. I don't think they're going to be separate. We see FinOps consumption increasing in line with AI consumption, as an example. So I think they're going to become kind of, part of the same story very much. What do you reckon, Nath?
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think, we start to look at the categories, FinOps have introduced all of these different areas to, across different technology category areas now. The introduction of SaaS, the licensing, it's hard to avoid. I think it's the de facto standard about how we proactively manage and standardize, and the Tokenomics Foundation is a good example of that, is trying to standardize the way that we report and consume data in this space is only a good thing, to get more control, set better guardrails. But AI becomes another category. It's desktop, it's data center, it's SaaS, it's cloud. Now it's AI. So just another category of spend that needs to be managed. So Matt, once again, appreciate your time today. The call out from today, there's a few links that we've shared in the chat along the way, but if you want a demonstration of what we can do around managing AI spend across the Flexera One platform, please do, as Matt mentioned, please feel free to reach out to Matt or I, or through your account managers, the solution success managers that you're working with. Engage the right team for you, depending on where you're watching this from. I'm more than happy to take you through what we're doing in this space. So once again, we haven't got time to catch or answer all the questions today. We'll get back to those after the event. But thank you very much for joining us today. Matt, thank you for partnering up with me and doing the research behind this. And thanks, everybody. Take care.
Thanks. Take care, all.